Welcome back to the Talk Past podcast. I'm, of course, the occasional usual host, and I have with me one of my wonderful friends and the director of the Sarasota Medieval Fair. You can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's I go by Odd Duck out on here. So yeah,
Hmm.
and I am the director of the Sarasota Medieval Fair.
Indeed, which of course is a recent situation, but you're not uh, new to running a reenactment group or reenactment events, which is what I figured we'll talk about for this episode. So I wanted to run down a couple quick things as sort of a history regarding you that honestly I've never really gotten into with your group, or SMF, but your group in terms of the ones that have been doing the show before I came in 2010 specifically. When did you start reenactment?
I'd have to say 1998 was when I started really getting into the reenactment. I'm originally from Michigan, and I spent a lot of years going to the Michigan Renaissance Festival. And it was around 98 that I really started. I mean, I would just went as just a guest and didn't dress up, but then 98 started to dress up and really get into it more. And then once I moved south, I just by chance, I mean, obviously Sarasota had the Ringling Fair at that time back in 2000, and it just so happened, my wife at the time ended up working with a lady there that she did it and her husband did it, and just happened to work out that way that we got involved with a group there and started. My first show officially was the last Ringling show they did in 2001, and just got hooked and been doing it ever since.
Indeed, I mean that's pretty much how it happens. You just kind of happen into it. I think I've told it many times on the podcast, but for me it was um, going out to that Harry Potter thing they did,
Mhm.
and you showing me because obviously first time holding a sword, not how not to hold a sword. But Dean's like, gonna do the fair? I'm like, okay, okay,
Yeah,
and
I
then
think
doing
that's
it.
how a lot of people get into this. It's just they end up going out and they talk to somebody, and I've always got I mean, what I've heard from other people is, "Oh, I mean, I didn't realize it was so easy to get into." It's like, yeah, pretty much if you show up, especially,
Yeah,
I mean, with our group and just the core group that we've had over the years and have grown from, that they're always really welcoming and,
right.
"Oh, yeah, yeah, come on out. Yeah, sure." Doesn't matter
Yeah.
how weird you are or whatever. I mean, you end up being weird like us and
Hmm. Oh
just
yeah. I notice a lot of reenactment groups that are proper groups or like that. It's just show up. We'll fill in the blanks later.
exactly.
We want you out here unless you're a little too weird. Then maybe crossing the border weird. But
Uh,
beyond that, yeah,
hey, hey, you're pretty weird yourself, and
I am. I
what
am.
what
Although my like good.
when you first started, it was, wow, this guy, this person's wow. I mean, a little bit out there, and it was but then once I got to know you, it was, no, no, just everybody's got their own brand of weird. So,
Yeah, yeah. But beyond that, of course, beyond when you started it with us, or the group, you also did the West Coast Mutineers, which obviously isn't medieval, but it's all the same people. I know it's Troll and Michelle, but did you have any sort of input in that regard when that started up, or how did you get into that?
um, well, there was a Key West show that
Mhm.
was done by another group that Troll and Michelle were a part of, and that kinda fell apart over the years, as some groups when you've got
Yeah.
smaller groups like that that happen like that. And they decided they wanted to do their own thing and start their own, and 'cause, you get frustrated sometimes, but you get, well, I
Mhm.
guess frustrated is the best word, with other people's creative ideas, and
Yeah.
they don't wanna, I mean, you've got your own ideas, and they're not always open to them. and so they had other ideas and they wanted to try stuff, and so they started the West Coast Mutineers, and I mean, I mean, when we did the first show with them, became really good friends. I mean, with both of them, Troll and Michelle, and Troll being much like myself,
Mhm.
as far as personality goes and everything, we really clicked and just became really good friends, and so we were asked to do that show and just kinda, I mean, became I felt
Con
really integral. Everybody seemed that was one nice thing that I learned from them was making everybody feel like their input matters and
yeah.
what they want matters and trying to make everybody integral parts of the show. Not just, "Oh, yeah, you're here, thanks for showing up," as
Mhm.
some shows and some groups do.
Right.
You
'Cause I mean,
feel like you feel like you're more of a commodity than you are a person.
yeah, 'cause I mean, every at least I think I only did it for the 3 years, 2 or 3 years, 'cause obviously at the tail end is kinda when it stopped. But, everyone, every group, every tent kinda had was doing their own thing. You kinda had their own, almost their own sort of renaissance, not renaissance, but you know what I mean, sort of reenactment, era and situation going on. It was all kind of different than what I had done with SMF and thought it was gonna be, but I liked doing the show itself, 'cause it was very super casual, just hanging out and, pretending to be, at least for us, trying to be historical pirates, but between a Sunglass Hut and a uh, Bubba Gump, shrimp, and, but it was fun. It was a lot different, fight-wise than SMF, so I might kinda conversationally kinda trade back and forth in terms of ideology, which is why I bring it up. But let's transition into what we've been doing. Um, SMF, obviously, you started that when they were, I think that was before Jeremy, right? Or
Well, yeah, SMF officially started well, not SMF. Jeremy,
give or take.
our producer, yeah, did his first show in 2000 down in Cape Coral.
Mhm,
14 years old and wanted to put on a show, so we had the Cape Coral Medieval Fair, and that's how my first meeting with Jeremy, and we did that show, and it was a one it was gonna be a second year, but things kinda fell apart, and so it was 2005, he decided, I mean, he's gonna put on another show. He wanted to keep doing it, and since the Ringling Fair had dropped out in Sarasota, that was no longer happening, he decided he was gonna do the Sarasota Medieval Fair and started putting on a show, first show out at the Polo Grounds, and, I was at that time fortunately, unfortunately, either way, things work out the way they do. I was doing a stage show with another friend of mine, and so that was up we were doing that up at Bay Area, a lane act, and so that kinda took up my time, and I really didn't have time to join into the fair. So, but then I came back around in 2008 and yep, just kinda
mhm,
that was it.
yeah. Um, so, obviously, from my perspective, right, coming into the show, I think for, like, the first 4 years, I probably didn't even say much of anything, but, obviously, going into it from a new person's perspective, you see the core group, the veterans, if you will,
Mhm.
um, obviously, at the time, yourself, Tina, Dean, etcetera, Shannon for, like, 1 year. Um, but, how was sort of the dynamic, all y'all? Like, how did you, as a group, sort of kinda implement things? I know at the time it was a different director, but, as a core friend group, were you guys, obviously with Tina as a costume director as well, did you guys sort of mull things over as you began to come into the fair year?
Well, yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
we would definitely I mean, definitely talk because most of us, we hung out during the year. It wasn't
Mhm,
we weren't just friends during the run of the show. I mean, because once again, Dean and Shannon, Tina, and all those I mean, obviously I knew Tina longer, but we all met when we I mean, I met them all when we moved down here, so we became friends then, and it just we hang out during the year, and so, obviously, when fair's getting ready we're getting ready for fair and everything like that, we would have been talking anyway about scenario and what we're doing
Mhm.
and ideas and see throw it at the wall and see what sticks type of things, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, there was always discussion ahead of time, but it was spitballing. It was never I mean, it would be maybe it would work out, maybe it wouldn't as far as ideas and what ended up in the show, so but yeah, there was definitely discussion, so
Yeah, I imagine like a bit, we come up with bits every year leading up to the show, and maybe like one of them sticks.
well, yeah,
Uh,
exactly, yeah. A lot of things sound good in theory, and then you start
or you
thinking
just
about
get
it and
lazy.
oh,
Just get lazy like me.
that too, that can
Yeah.
oh, we all do that. I mean, we all come up with the grandiose ideas through auditions and everything and
Mhm.
practice, and then it gets to be that time, and obviously,
Yep.
I mean, you're busy out there and, well, sometimes you
Yeah.
just don't have time for everything, and so
Oh, yeah, Joan of Arc year, I think I mentioned leading up to the show, I wanted to make a podium. Just a simple
mhm.
wooden podium and, be out there singing Antichrist Superstar, but, that probably would've gotten me in trouble sooner than I did. But, yeah, assuming anybody realized what I was doing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, there's always that thinking about what can I get away with? What
Yeah,
can I do to kinda push those lines that I mean, somebody will get a laugh out of somewhere,
yeah.
but, yeah.
It took at least, like, the last day before I was like, "You can't do that." Like, "Oh, but everybody loves it.
Yeah.
It's part of my character." But,
Hey,
you know what
well,
I'm
at
talking
least
about.
you kept everybody fed that year, I will say that.
Yes, yes,
I mean, I even I know myself included, um, pulling out gear for the next show and, bloody hell, there's little wafer crackers in there.
mhm, yeah, I don't remember all the places I put those things. The only thing I remember going around with not going around with Joan, but, encountering Joan's group every now and then and kinda tagging behind them,
Mhm.
using Eddie's armor as a coin slot because there's so many little cracks in his armor,
Oh, yeah.
and, just doing, like, weird bits, for them when they're like, there's that weird, like, seating arrangement we had this time,
Mhm.
where you could sit down and you're kinda facing the front gate, and, occasionally they'd be up there and I'd push as many boundaries as I could right in front of them, and they'd just be laughing at us because they know the joke, and it's just an in between thing. But moving on, not to digress too much down that lane. Um, Obviously, over the course of time, you became assistant director and then director. But is there any like before we get into SMF specifically? Is there any other like show you've done that you have specifically put together or anything you've put together in reenactment that is kind of wholly outside of, say, West Coast Mutineers and SMF?
No, no, there's not, I mean, I it's ta that's taken up obviously a lot of time, so I don't
Yeah.
really have a lot of time for other things. No, I kinda left it at just the couple shows, the Mutineer shows and the Sarasota shows for those
Hmm.
years. So, no, I love doing it, but I still need my breaks in between. So,
Yeah. So I mean,
I'll
SMF itself was what,
yeah.
4 months,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then West Coast Mutineers show was on Madeira Beach was what was it like April and May or something of that nature?
Yeah, April, May, yeah, depending on the
So
year.
yeah, I was like 2 months. My only
Yeah.
gripe with doing that show was the rehearsal, but that's only because like our group that I was introduced into, was
Mhm.
all new people except for Tina.
Mhm.
And Tina's just like, just chill. I'm like, but what do we do? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
those shows were a lot more laid back. There wasn't
Yeah.
well, anywhere near the structure that we would have because there wasn't really a story to tell per se.
Mhm.
Everybody had their individual stories, but there wasn't a
Yeah.
overall scenario other than, "Hey, we're pirates." You
Yeah,
know?
it didn't help on my front that, as we refer to him here as the Bruce, we would actually have our little cast get meetups at his place, and we would discuss our stuff there. So then, we'd have like a Friday or something, I don't know what day it was, where we'd hang out together there, and then all of a sudden we got nothing to do on the weekend except drive to the beach and just sit around on a picnic table, going
Yeah.
like doodly doodly doo. I already know what I'm doing. Can we just get to it? Um, for SMF, when you started actually officially, being in charge, um, what is it like? Kind of say it's the end of the
Mhm.
year of previous whatever. I don't know what year. We'll just throw a year together, and you kind of starting to think about the next season. Yeah, I'm thinking of in terms of coming up with the scenario. In terms of past years, Uh, would you have a scenario sort of in mind or set in stone kind of last day-ish? Or kind of around the last time, last month of the previous show? Or is that something over the course of the season, kind of like the
Yeah,
Vikings?
we definitely, I mean, while I was assistant, we would, I mean, kinda brainstorm during during the show. We just, I
Mhm,
mean, we chat and kinda try to see what can we do next year? How can we make it bigger, better, more interesting, different, whatever. And so we'd throw ideas around there, and a lot of times, yeah, there would be the scenario would be figured out by the end of the show. Um, and once again, much like doing lane work and improv, we'd have lots of ideas,
mhm.
and only some of them come to fruition.
Yeah, I remember, prior to Viking year, I think that was Richard the Lionheart, I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
You guys really wanted to do Vlad the Impaler. I wanted to
Mhm.
do Vlad, um, 'cause, like, until now, actually having the time to get into everything in terms of medieval and archaeology, I wasn't really interested in the history of what we did. It was just like, I'm showing up, I'm doing stuff. Um, but, like, growing up, Vlad the Impaler was probably the only historical figure I ever had any real interest in. I don't know if that says anything about me, but, um, so when you guys were piping up about that, I'm like, "That yes, I want to do that." And then we just kinda didn't. Sort of
Yeah, I
like
mean,
a few other
and there
things.
were reasons for not doing it, and they make sense in some ways, and, I mean, I could see it being a popular it could be entertaining, but having to find that just right way to do it without making it too every day is Halloween, basically.
Yeah, which, for, not to digress, but obviously I wanna just put out a couple little hot takes on that since we're never gonna do it. Obviously, for
Never
me
say never.
oh, touche, touche.
I've
My
got I've been working on ways to
mm-mm,
convince on that, but
mhm. See, my thing on that, I'll just go on one issue then. My thing, when it was brewing the ideas of it and, it got shut down because of the idea of, like, the Halloween thing, like,
Mhm,
"Oh, our producer doesn't want people coming out dressing like Twilight and stuff every weekend," but the thing is, every single weekend, people already do that. We have furries, we have people that come as Disney characters and Star Wars and Game of Thrones. Like, that is such a complaint to have for doing Vlad.
mhm,
Just throwing that hot take out there, felt
yeah.
like it needed to be said, Preaching.
It's a little dark for I think their management's taste to a point. It can't there's the potential for it to be dark.
See,
Um
if I did Vlad, like, as the character, and, like, say we did it on the channel, right?
Mhm,
And you can't have, like, NSFW stuff because then YouTube won't monetize you or kids can't watch or whatever, that kinda thing. I would maybe I don't know, I would use his spear, the idea and the concepts of Vlad the Impaler, but not the depth, like, the
mhm,
depth of the violence. Like, use a
yeah.
spear as a weapon that's maybe stained in blood, but not show the spearing,
Mhm.
but Yeah. Just kinda I'm throwing that out there. But, f quick question in regards to mulling over and starting to kinda create or what we do, our reenactment group. Obviously, for the listeners, the 3 of you out there, um, and maybe 10 in 2 years, we obviously have the benefit of everything's kind of set up for us in Sarasota Medieval Fair because we have a producer who has the show, and we're just kind of like we're kind of like a stage group. Basically, we're kind of like the store brand stage group. But I mean, everything's already set up for us. But we still come up with everything on our own. I assume. Um,
Yes.
I think our producer does have an idea of what he wants. Like I think he wanted Viking, or he wanted Scottish, or he wanted
Mm.
King Arthur or something. But
Sometimes, yeah, he'll have ideas of what he wants, but a lot of times his input is more of the feel he wants for that year, not so much the exact scenario or anything like that, and, I mean, always wants it to be family friendly, and which is good. I mean, you want because I mean, so many speaking of families and kids, so many people that currently do our show came here as kids and grew up in I mean, we've got plenty of them that grew up in the show, and they're gonna be the ones that take over when I'm dead and gone.
I mean, just to put a little laugh out there, there's one person who does listen to the podcast who's got like 10 kids who does the show,
Yeah,
and we love them, and they're
uh,
they're
those are clones, those are not kids, those are clones.
clones.
I
Yes,
I'm
they're
I am
they're
convinced they're clones.
stormtroopers
Yeah,
who as some people think they're clones. Actually, they're not clones. But
yeah.
so obviously we do kind of bring things together, at least in terms of rehearsal. But there's a lot that goes on before we even get to site to do that awkward audition
Mhm.
every single year. Um, it's awkward for me, but I enjoy not doing it. But the getting up on the stage thing, which actually, now that you have a new site, what did you do for audition?
We actually did our auditions this year, in the round. We
Okay,
had a nice little spot with shade trees, and we just all sat in a circle, and we kinda people hopped up, and we did similar along the same lines, some improv games, and just kinda getting people comfortable with being
okay,
in front of that crowd.
indeed. I remember there would be when everything was starting to kind of get put together on site. There was that ginormous stage, kind of like to the left when we entered in
Yes.
that very tiny area. Um, before y'all finally got rid of all the junk and
Mhm.
debris and palm trees. Uh, I wish they kept that. That would have been a nice. Unless you did, I thought
No, 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 that stage is gone. I mean, it could have been used, but it was just unfortunately in an awkward spot that we really
mhm,
needed for parking, quite frankly,
touche, touche.
because if that had been taken up, that's I mean, we were already had enough trying to find enough room for all the cars to park since, I mean, it was such a
Yeah,
amazing turnout that we couldn't afford to lose that, so
yeah. So, getting back into prior to, how do you director of the show? How do you set up coming into audition? What are you doing beforehand to prep? Is the producer the one putting out sort of the feelers to get people in, or are you guys sort of you guys as in those yourself, Brennan, etc. Um, kind of taking the reins on that, or what is your approach going into auditions?
Yeah, normally that's I mean, a lot of that's left to us, as far as bringing the cast together, bringing in new people, uh, we're gonna do a new like, for example, this year, we're gonna put a new, like, wanna call it a commercial. We're gonna put a new one of those together, similar to what we did a few years back that's been reused over and over again and
Hmm.
outlived its usefulness. We're gonna put a new one together, different ideas we're throwing together for that, and A lot of it's word of mouth, especially with social media now. I mean, plastering Facebook and, different things like that, Reddit, Twitter,
Mhm.
whatever will work to just get it out there that, hey, I mean, auditions are coming up, we've already got dates for them, but we're gonna I mean, probably a couple months out, I mean, start really pushing that and just talking to people, I mean, going up to other shows, and I went up last weekend headhunting at a different show that
Mhm.
and I know I've got at least 3 or 4 people from that show that haven't done our show before that are gonna come down, and it's a lot of it's, "Hey, I know a friend that does it," and or they went last year, but we wanna I mean, they'll be I mean, it'll be plastered all over social media, basically, that's the new advertising
Yeah.
anyway, so but yeah, we wanna put a couple ads together and just get it out there. It's not yeah, we don't really do, like, newspaper articles or full page ads or anything like that. We don't have the budget for it.
Right.
Pretty much whatever we can do that's free
Mhm.
is how
Yeah,
it
we're not
works
King
out.
Richards.
No, no.
Those are the fancy festivals,
Yeah,
which I've obviously it's right up here in the state that I'm in, but I'm not. Yeah, I
yeah.
haven't gone there. Um, in terms of scenario, now that we're actually, because I mean, I remember how Dean does it, or at least how he sort of presents it. But how did you approach getting everybody into the scenario, sort of breaking the ice of the scenario? Because we have auditions. Maybe we know, maybe people know, maybe people don't. Dean would always like announce it, I guess, or I don't know
Mhm.
if he did it at auditions or like the first official rehearsal. But how did you sort of break everyone into the new year, new site of Sarasota?
Um, my thinking is, I mean, it's nice I mean, I wasn't a big fan of telling people too early like we used to do
Hmm.
year previous. I mean, even though I did it this year. Um, this year I wanted it to be more of a surprise and it took longer to decide also because I want with it being our new first year at the new site, wanted to pick the right scenario that was gonna work and
Right.
not and gonna be something everybody can just kinda walk into and feel and I mean, especially guests without having to quite frankly, crack a history book.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I love historical scenarios, don't get me wrong, um, but some of them, I mean, can be kind of generic at points. Oh, look, it's English and French. It's this battle of word that I can't really pronounce.
Hmm.
So this year was really something that people are going to know. Hence why we went with the Battle of Falkirk, but not what people were going to expect because people hear, oh, English versus Scottish, and especially with William Wallace being involved, everybody immediately goes back to Braveheart because, well, that's the William Wallace, Braveheart, yeah, of course. But if you don't do your history, you don't realize that he doesn't win Falkirk. He loses. So I wanted to throw him that little curveball. And when we first started auditioning, I, when we first started doing auditions, I told the cast we were doing a Braveheart style scenario. It was a couple weeks in until I told them what we were actually doing because I didn't want anybody getting any preconceived notions once again. Kinda letting them soak that part in, and then I said, "Okay, we're gonna do the Battle of Falkirk," and then explain the Battle of Falkirk and kind of my picture of how it was gonna work out. Um, because once again, I love history. It can be pretty dry though sometimes, and in picking a scenario and deciding how that story is gonna go. I mean, you can do a historical scenario and it can be boring because, well, hey, these guys went out and fought and that's it. There's no flavor to that. I want to find the flavor in it. And sometimes we take a little bit of license with the historical. It's based on a historical scenario, but we have to play with it because ultimately what we're doing is entertainment while still being historical. So finding that finding the entertainment in out of printed pages in a book, that's that's the hardest challenge for me in coming up with a scenario. I mean, I can sit down in 20 minutes and come up with 20 battles, but what about those battles can I make entertaining? What's the hook? What's the catch on these battles that I can exploit to make it an entertaining show versus just two kings that are arguing and they send people out to fight.
Or
And
perhaps the concept of Vikings and the Scottish,
yeah,
and kinda just riding that wave.
yeah. I mean, because personally, I'm not a big fan of Vikings. I mean, that's just me personally, but I know other people are, so let's go ahead with it.
Mhm. Or also, of course, we did 2 years of, uh, quote, unquote, "King Arthur." Um,
Yes.
we've never done a historical King Arthur, we always did that sort of almost Victorian era, kinda Renaissance,
Well, yeah.
weird
Yeah.
fantasy thing.
Well,
Uh
because there's still debate whether King Arthur was real or not, whether
mhm.
it's truly historical. So, I mean, we like I said, we do our historical, but you gotta throw those fantasy ones in there every once in a while, whether it's
Yeah.
Robin Hood or King Arthur or
Mhm.
whatever to, I mean, spice it
Yep.
up a little bit because that's when you really can get a little bit more freedom in your storyline and how you want the show to work out. So, which once again, talking about that, sometimes what we think in the beginning isn't how it ends up working out because we come up with a better idea during auditions or like the second week of practice where, oh wait, what if we did this instead? Not changing the scenario, but changing the storyline of the scenario too. I mean,
Kinda like that
that
Harry Potter show.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Although,
I don't
that's not a hot take, I did enjoy doing that, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
Um, so we kinda go into it with a scenario at least in mind. You get the first sort of group that
yeah,
comes. We do our audition. We have our drills, if you will, the two weekends. Um, so as a director, and I think this is what really kind of I focused on in terms of me as a performer for the fight portion of our show. Um, Improv at that point pretty much throw you to the wind. Um, but what specifically do you, knowing what you want in the show, what you want to cast or who you want to cast, if you will, um, kind of what you need out of this, given who shows up during our training weekends, which I think previously were only like two or three weekends. What specifically are you kind of looking at as a director now?
what during auditions, during those
Hmm.
first couple weeks of practice, what I'm really looking at, um, is how comfortable somebody is with themselves, how open they are to letting themselves be stupid or be funny or be serious or kinda like we kinda shop talk, letting those shields down, of just kinda letting yourself go and letting what comes come, and you always get the people. I mean, especially, I mean, sometimes it's new people, sometimes it's veterans that they have that problem getting out there. And I like what I really look for is, I mean, obviously, if you've got certain characters in mind, if you're doing more of a scenario that people know really well, like Braveheart, I mean, William Wallace is kind of like this, but when it's a scenario that's could be a little bit more not as popular. I mean, you'll have a couple people that might have a physical description that was written in a history book or somebody did a painting of them. But really, I mean, I'm personally very open to pushing those boundaries as far as what people expect. I mean, okay, I mean, and I'm not even opposed to gender bending personally,
Right.
as far as characters go. I mean,
Which we actually do have on
yes,
occasion.
I mean, not just, I mean, people that are, I mean, whether they're non-binary or they identify differently, than cis, but even, I mean, if there's, I mean, if for whatever reason I wanted to do a King Arthur scenario and there was a woman that made more sense, maybe we'd have a Queen Arthur scenario
Yeah.
because it just made sense and it seems more be more entertaining. And plus, part of that is obviously during history, women weren't really the focus. Mostly, it was very, I mean, male centric. Women were, I mean, oh look, they're there. He had a queen. What was her name? Who cares? That was history. I want to change that obviously because I mean, there's women out there that deserve the spotlight any as much as any guy.
Oh yeah,
And
like
so,
Kat and I just did a an episode, Eleanor, Queen of Aquitaine, yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, there's so many people out there of all different types that it really is just dependent on what text was written and what survives.
yeah, exactly. I mean, history winners write history, obviously. And so, but no, I mean, ultimately, one of my goals is to have, I mean, we call them the kings on the board. I mean, our two main characters. I want two women out there running, running the entire scenario, running the chessboard, running the two opposing sides, just because why not? Why
Mhm.
should it just be limited to men?
Exactly.
If the scenario, if there's nothing in the scenario saying, I mean, like you brought up earlier, Vlad the Impaler. Yes, everybody knows who Vlad the Impaler was. I mean, but why does Vlad have to be a man? Why can't it be a woman? So, yeah, I mean, if that's so I'm not when I'm start that preliminary casting, if you want to call it, when I'm watching people during auditions and I'm watching, like I said, during fight practice and fight
Mhm.
training, I'm looking for intangibles, kinda those just somebody that's comfortable in themselves and I can see pushing themselves out there when they go out into the lanes or they're on the board and being that loud and being a character and what they're willing to do, and then also the people that are right there on that cusp of you can see that it's there, but they're still kinda holding in that shell. I like putting them out there and really pushing that and trying to bring that out of them and see where in those first couple weeks of where's the point where it's just gonna all of a sudden click for them, and all of a sudden we've got, I mean, this loud, boisterous, crazy person out there that's just gonna be an amazing character. So that's, I
Yeah.
mean, and then
That
obviously
was
looking at those that are a little bit more shy or reserved, whatever you want to call it, that okay, what do I need? What do we need as the directors of this show? How can we help bring that out of them? And because everybody's different and everybody needs
mhm.
that little push here, a little gentle push there, or a little words here and words there. What can we do to bring that out of them? Because ultimately, I mean, I want every single person that comes out and is cast as something, or whether it's a named character, or hey, you are the local fishmonger, or whatever you are, ultimately it's to have fun. Because
Mhm.
if we're not doing it for fun, why are we doing it? Because
Right.
God, it's 18 weeks of hell.
Yeah. Similarly, in that vein, I do understand. I feel like I'm at a point now where I'd love to, because I was one of those people, because I have a history of abuse and social anxiety and all that stuff. and it took the 4 years for me to start coming out of that shell. Um, so I see that now in the people that do our show, and I kinda sort of everyone's different, everyone has their own path, if you will, but I kinda see now sort of the breadcrumbs of how to get people there, uh,
Mhm.
or what people or what helps people. Like, I like to get to meet people at their level. Um, Part of that when I was Alfred, being able to have that experience of being on the board as not having to kneel, right? Um, I love the perspective of being able to not kill my knees. But
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize this wasn't something. Maybe it is. I don't know. The people that I let do came up to me after and blah blah blah. But I obviously let a lot of people on the board literally just have a moment because we were supposed to be an army. We were supposed to be an ensemble, if you will. And I know there were people that kind of felt being English was a bit of a drag. Um, so I'm like, we're doing a show. It has nothing to do with what side you're on. Like, I would have people pipe up on the board or even ask suggestions of moves and stuff on the board. Uh, I obviously I'm sure you notice and such, but those people would come up after the show and be like, no one's ever let me have a say. No one's ever let me on the board say something or do something. And I never really realized if that was a thing. If people felt like they couldn't, kind of have a moment, but for me, it felt natural to just like, we are a team. We're here to have fun. If it helps you kind of come out a bit, why not give you that 5 seconds to shout at someone who you're about to fight in like 3 moves, or maybe you don't have a fight. But you know what? We're friends. Why wouldn't you have a moment? Um, it helps the scenario. It helps build our show. But so I kind of feel like that sort of guided me down that sort of realization of helping people in that regard. So I kind of feel the same way in a very
Yeah,
long-winded
yeah.
said way.
Well, that's one of the things, I mean, I call it I'm trying to change the culture of our show. I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, I love Dean to death, don't get me wrong, previous director, um, and the show wouldn't be where we are today and be as successful it is as it is without him, because he started really in 2005, taking the reins of Sarasota Medieval Fair and making it what it is today. We've never really, seen eye to eye on everything. Different, everybody's got different opinions, and now that it's, I've taken the reins. I part of my thing is, like I said, I want to make it fun for everybody, and I part of doing that to me is having people understand I'm just another person. We're all on the same team. We're all on the same cast. Just because I wear the big hat doesn't mean I'm not just the same person. If you have I've said at the beginning, you have an idea, come up to me. Let's talk. Come up with your ideas because I am one person. I cannot come up with all the ideas. We put this show on as a cast, as an ensemble, and everybody's input is welcome. I mean, absolutely. Ultimately, I'm going to have the last say. Well, the producer will have the last say.
Yeah.
But no, it's bringing everybody in so we're all everybody's opinion's valuable. Like I said, I can't come up with every idea. I can't come up with every joke that is going to happen during the show.
Hmm.
So that's what I depend on my cast for and everybody. So everybody has input and we're all flawed in our own way and we're all excellent in our own way and I there's been issues happen in the past where I found out after the fact that somebody had a problem or something like that, that they didn't feel comfortable coming to one of us, Dean or myself, as directors because they were either misinformed or they were told, "Oh, nothing's gonna happen," or this and that, and finding out, unfortunately, 2 years after the fact really, it gutted me. It bothered me a lot, and that was part of the big impetus for me to want to change things. So,
Yeah.
I mean, being well open with everybody, "Hey, I mean, like I said, I've told them, I mean, a lot of what they see about me out there is me acting. That the real me isn't even what people get to see out there. They see the image I wanna put on, which therapy and everything's helped me get rid of that. But so there is no, "Oh, you gotta be afraid of him. Don't say the wrong thing." I might make fun of you, but I make fun of you, it's all in fun, and everybody laughs, and I can dish it out, I can take it just as well.
Mhm.
But letting everybody understand that we're all just people and everybody's got their issues, and I want
Yeah.
people to be able to come up to me and talk to me if something's bothering them, and I see that they're off that day. Well, I mean, is there anything I can do? I mean, anything I can do to help? Whatever. I mean, do you need to take a break? Whatever. Anything. I mean, I want it because once again, it's got to be fun, or else it's pointless to do this because I've already got a job. Why do I want to come and work another job? I want to come out and have fun with my friends, ultimately, because my friends and my family, because that's what most of these people become are my family,
Mhm.
is to have fun. And so I don't, but I'll take, yeah, I mean, everybody's got ideas. They may see something I don't,
Yeah.
because as much as I like to think it, I'm not omnipotent. God, I wish I was though, because that'd be
Yeah.
really cool. At
If
least in
if
some ways, maybe, I mean, at least
Mhm.
invisibility or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah. I mean,
not like Bruce Almighty. That's not
ugh.
me.
Yeah, if there's something that I've learned specifically from my journey doing the show that I can impart on you, the listeners, if you've ever done the show or thinking about it or do reenactment like SCA or anything of that nature, I'm talking to you, weirdos. But you know, everyone has their own thing going on. Not everyone can comment on what you're doing. You need to bring yourself to the table, but understand that we're all there to help if you need it. And there's no head of the table. There should never be that sort of concept of someone's better than you because they've been doing it longer or they're the director or anything of that nature. You know, at least I know with SMF, that sort of concept, to me, I've never seen it. You know, I've never experienced it. Uh, but I know some people do think that, but it's kind of silly. Just be yourself and know that we're all there to do the same thing. We're just there to dress up and do weird things. But you know, we're all pretty much family at some point. Um,
Oh, yeah, I
beyond,
know, absolutely. I mean, the family thing, that's 100% true there because I have family,
yeah,
literally family that lives here in the area, and I hardly see them, but God, my fair family, my friends and family, I talk to them all the time.
hmm,
So, I
indeed,
mean, it's more, I mean, more my family than anybody else. I mean, and
yeah,
that's one of the greatest things about it is, I mean, the lifelong friendships and I mean, some fade, some go. I mean, it's just
hmm,
like anything in life, but no, it's
yeah. So transitioning, of course, to another facet that you've been doing specifically for longer than you've been even probably assistant director. But putting together our show in terms of what we do, because I mean, though we are sort of the store brand stage act in terms of what we do, specifically our specialty is the chess match. I know some people will say, well, we're general cast or improv and stuff like that. That, yes, that is like the 99% of what we do. And that is the most important thing that we do that I should address to those who think all we are fight cast. You know what I'm talking about. Um, but how is it like, and what are you going through mentally when you're putting together our melee specifically, because obviously we the fighters put our own fights together, but you have to deal with the melee. Um, do you have something in mind specifically when you're going in, or since we kind of have that organized chaos feel, do you sort of oversee what everyone is doing and then just kind of guide people along to the path you want to see?
My theory with the chess match, specifically, and going into the melee is, once again, it comes back to the scenario that, okay, what was there, um, my term for it, I use a lot of pro wrestling terms because I do
Hmm.
look at what we do very much pro wrestling.
It is, yeah.
It's
No,
it's
we're
it's telling
WWE with
that
swords.
story through physical violence and emotion and whatnot. There's always a high spot when I'm picking a scenario that, how can I work this? How can we work this into the melee? Whether it's previous years where we had slow motion or we had somebody climbing the keep, the little castle stage there up to the top, and having that be the high point, the high spot of the melee, or whether it's, I mean, we've had many different things, but having that high point in the melee, it's finding that, how do we work towards that goal? So every year it's finding, what can we do to get, what do we need, what steps do we need to take to get to that goal? Um and most years I would say a lot of it's, hey, we know what our goal's supposed to be. It's almost like, connect the dots in a way. Um, where, okay, well, our goal is number 45. So I've got to get from 1 to 45. So we start our choreography of the melee, and okay, well, you guys come out here, or everybody rush out here. Okay, now that we're all out here, we're maybe 3 or 4 seconds into 3 or 4 real time seconds into the melee. By this point, it's like 30 seconds because we do it all slow motion. But okay, we're 3 or 4 numbers into the melee. So I need to start getting this person over here to get this high spot set up. So let's start guiding these people over here. Okay, these people on the left, you're gonna start coming over here and stuff. It's very much, I don't want to say fly by the seat of my pants, but it is. In a lot of ways, it's okay. I've got to get to this end point. How do I get there? Which isn't our normal. I mean, a lot of the fighters do that in their featured fights, where they have a move they want to get in there somewhere, and so it's not really the best way to do things. Don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, you should let it flow, because if you force it too much, it seems forced. But I've got this. I've got to get Joan of Arc up on top of the keep. I've got to be able to get the ladder up there. So, okay, this has got to happen. This has got to happen. So but it's still, up until that point, it's very much flying by the seat of my pants. It's all right, standing there. Well, how do I get this? And um, getting to that point where, okay, but while still keeping, not having it be mechanical. Because I mean, obviously, I mean, I could immediately just say, okay, well, you three walk over here, grab the ladder, and put it up there, and then Joan, you come over here and you climb up the ladder and wave your banner around. Well, yeah, we can do that, but that's boring. So we've got to find, once again, that flavor and that excitement in getting to that point, while still allowing, like you mentioned, everybody to have that moment, because everybody getting their own section of that spotlight. If there's some place to get it in there. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, oh, that's the point where, yeah, you did this big roll across the field and came up and stabbed somebody, or whatever it may be. You have this big, you yell out something, and everybody, obviously the crowd's going to look at you because you just made a big noise. Because we do things in the round, once again, and there's 4 sides to our chessboard. So you've got 4 different crowds that can't focus on everything at once. So some people might see what you do, some people might not, but, I mean, want everybody to get that chance to get their spotlight while still getting to that 45th step of Jones up on top of the keep. Um, so it's yeah, it's a lot of flying by the seat of my pants,
Yeah.
and also relying once again on our cast because I can't see 45 people at once and move them like little, pun intended, chess pieces to get to that point. So I rely on the experienced people and people, I mean, their experiences and their that we've all, I mean, a lot of us have done this for a long time and you get more comfortable as you do it. And okay, well, I know I should go over here because I need to be up here. I need to be over there. I want to, while still keeping it everything full, not having like 20 people in a 20 by 20 square on the board, keeping everybody spread out so the crowd can see everything.
Yeah.
For both safety's sake, obviously, especially when you're dealing with pole arms and swords swinging around. You put too many people in one area, somebody's going to get whacked.
It happens, yeah.
No, but I mean,
At some
for the
point, you
chess
could.
match, it's a lot of the melee specifically. It's a lot of flying by the seat of my pants.
Mm.
It's there's no there's no good way to say that. It's just yeah, I make it up as I go
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
because it's meant to portray chaos. It's meant to portray just mass madness going on out there. You've got 30, 40, sometimes 50 people out there we've had just going crazy and people flying all over and moving all over and that's hard to keep track of.
Mhm.
So,
Indeed. And, of
with
course,
the
just
mhm,
oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, you first.
What I was gonna say, with the chess match though, specifically the moves, the rest of the match, that's a different process. That's very much it's still the same thought. I'm starting on 1 and I've gotta get to 30. If you think number of moves in a chess match, maybe
Mhm.
not 30, 20. I've gotta get from this point to this point, and while still telling that story of what's happening in individual character stories during the chess match.
Mhm.
Um, well, I mean, we normally do 2. So if you saw 1 and only 1 and you only saw the second one, you saw the first one, it's still telling a cohesive story. The second one tells the entire story. The first one tells a story. While getting those 2 stories together, if people are there hopefully for the whole day and they see both matches, that they're seeing the whole story play out over 2 while still having 2 individual stories. So
Yeah.
that takes some work and some sitting down and um really some that's the hardest part I think with for me is um getting that because I've got to now I've got to decide who's fighting who and um like I said much wrestling talk in there it's booking the match is what I call it
Yeah.
deciding the order of the fights
By
who's
God,
fighting
who's gonna end up broken in half?
who what order they're fighting in because there's a pacing to everything. You want a nice I always say that first fight of both matches has to set the tone for the rest of the match and show these people, show the crowd and show the guests that we're out here putting it on the line and it's not I mean necessarily what you're going to see is setting that tone so you have that really brutal fight the first match and then
Mhm.
the second one yeah it's once again it's setting that tone that blurs that line for the people that come and see the show. I mean, obviously, in people's brains, in people's heads, they understand we're not killing each other. We're really not. We're not
Yeah.
out there murdering people. I mean, we would have been arrested at least a couple years. But getting that in that lizard brain, that that subconscious of them. to where it really blurs that line of, "Wait, did this go off track? Are they really punching each other?
They
Are
wanna
they"
see,
Yeah,
uh, is Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels.
yeah,
They wanna see 2 people who they think, the audience, really do
mhm,
hate each other. Obviously, those 2 really did,
yeah,
and see that bleed into what they thought was
yeah,
going to be just a friendly little Disney show, but actually become, a g brawl for all, if you will, although the brawl
yes,
for all was terrible.
mhm,
Referencing WWE.
yes.
Um, that is pretty much what I noticed. People don't care. They just wanna see a fight.
Exactly. I mean, people have a lust for violence, in our culture, and that's I my goal is to play into that, but also not just but it's not just violence though either. There's plenty of times where my theory is I go out there to fight.
Mhm.
I can if I'm the good guy, if I'm portraying the good guy in this fight, it's harder for me. I personally am much better at a bad guy. Um
Heel,
because
yeah.
I want to it's emotion. That's what it's all about. It's you can go out there and do the most technical fight you want, and ting 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 ting, swords clashing, and it's technically perfect. But did you get them emotionally? When you
Yeah.
go out there and you are brutal and the violence is there and you get once again into that subconscious, that primal part of people's brains that fight or flight takes over and they don't know what to do then. But they know they don't like you and they want to boo you. And that's the greatest feeling ever when the crowd boos you because you have captured them emotionally. Because if you're someplace and somebody starts clapping, well, people tend to clap along because hey, I want to fit in with everybody. I don't want to be the only guy not here clapping. But booing, really, you've gotta you can start booing and not everybody's gonna boo. But when
Mhm.
they do, that's you've captured their emotions. You own that person emotionally. And that's a great feeling. And that's what I try to build those emotions into the fights. Whether it's yes, I want them to cheer for this person at the end and be happy that the good guy won, or be happy that the bad guy won.
Yeah.
Or be happy that the bad guy lost or the good guy lost. I mean, having the but every single fight and the whole overall arcing chess match and melee has to fit that formula of getting them emotionally. Um, whether it's crying, whether it's terror, whether it's glee, whatever. It's I don't want them just sitting there at the end going, "Huh, that was a chess match."
Yeah, that
They
was
went
a
out there
beer
and
break.
those guys fought. I want them concerned for our safety, b blurring that line of, "Wait, did I just see somebody really" not knowing where reality ends and where acting begins.
Mhm. Oh, indeed, indeed, and yeah, everything we do has such a parallel with, I'll say, professional wrestling in general. Back in like the territory days, maybe more specifically, um, with the Jim Cornette and Bret Hart types.
Mhm.
But obviously, for time, let's because we can discuss like how to put together our specific reenactment show for like years.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
but I did want to touch on just a couple things, obviously, in terms of the show itself, like the literal show itself. Not so much what we've done before, but obviously what you did last year, which I wasn't there for, unfortunately.
Which
But
sucked.
mhm,
Made me mad. You said you were gonna come down, and then you didn't.
that was the plan.
I was truly disappointed. Not
I
in
was
you.
too.
It was less of a show because you weren't there.
I
And
know.
that's not me being flippant or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth, Nick.
Mhm.
Not
Uh,
NC. Sorry.
yeah.
That's the honest
Um.
truth, NC.
Uh. But you, at least from the pictures I've seen, actually took yourself out of the show, if you will, um, to literally direct it. And it looks like, I assume, because in images from the chess match, you can kind of spot people that when our beloved Tara was out, you can see photos of her in the audience, and she would have an outside perspective to give. Um, but I saw you kind of outside there too. What was your approach this year, kind of taking yourself out as a character and just having that
Yeah.
director role during the show?
Yeah, that was the hard thing to do. Obviously, I mean, I wanna be out there. Yeah, I decided before the show ever happened, I was going only to direct, because normally I would be on cast, and I would have a character and more than likely a fight. I mean, but
Mhm,
I wanted this year because it was, once again, this was our new first year, even though this was 17th, 18th annual Sarasota Medieval Fair. With our new site, new director, new everything, I wanted it to be it's our first show in this new place, and I wanted to focus on that. And I mean, it would have only been for lack of people that I would have put myself in the show. So I wanted to just be outside, not be outside, but just direct and put all my attention into that. Um, so I could help make this, along with the cast, the best first year that we could, the best show that we could, to especially, well, I mean, after COVID and everything like that and being off for a year, making our comeback be the best it could be. And that was really my reasoning for it. It bothered me. I mean, it was kind of difficult. I mean, during practice was one thing, but then, oh, okay, during fight practice, that
yeah,
is. But then we got into improv, and maybe I'm over dealing with business or something, and I felt a disconnect to a point from the cast because I wasn't a character, I wasn't anything, and so it was a little troubling at first, and then once we got into the show itself during actual show days, it was weird. It was really it took me aback a little bit because as you know and experience, we all get those stories of, oh yeah, when this happened out there, when this happened
mhm,
on the board, and when this happened, and oh, we were out in the lanes and this funny thing happened over here.
yeah,
I would be the one telling those stories. Oh yeah, we were over here and we did this and it was funny and people laughed or people cried or kids ran away or people exploded into flames, whatever it was. I didn't have those this year. I had, oh yeah, I get to I'm at that point when you're talking about this, I'm running from here over to here because, well, this person needs help over here, or I gotta make sure and herd these cats over to the joust. And it was a bit bittersweet because obviously being the first year, I mean, you only get that one first impression. I wanted to be part of that, but it's my place was directing. Next year's different. I'm going to be back out in the lanes and back in a character and maybe in a fight.
mhm,
Um, but that's also, I mean, I've got great, great cast and great people that I work with and that'll be able to help lighten the load and share the load because once again, it's not just me. But yeah, no, that was the decision, was to wanted to focus my attention on the show and not split my focus between, okay, well, I can't focus on the show because I have to focus on my fight or I have to focus on my character. So,
yeah, yeah. I can see that. I know coming up to this point, obviously my only perspective is with you and or Dean. Sometimes it feels like you either had to do that or yeah, you just needed a team behind you, right? He was very lucky to have that team behind him to be
mhm,
able to go out there in the lanes and do a fight and the melee and this and that. And sweep in as Lancelot on a horse and stuff like that. So I think it's something that most people don't realize is such a big thing. You know, I'm a nothing, but being king is not important in terms of who you are. It's just another role. But I kind of got a grasp of that when doing the king thing, only because obviously you guys decided that I would do all of the jousts. So it was like you just dropping stuff. You have to just be everywhere and make sure things are going off. I think that year Dave and I wanted to do a staff fight for the tournament, and it just couldn't happen. But
Yeah. A lot of
you know,
people think being the king is the winning. That's like winning the
no.
fair. Oh, winning the cast is being king. And no, it's quite the opposite. When you end up being cast as king, you are
It's a job.
more is asked of you than any other time because yes, like you mentioned, you have to go to the joust. You got to be at front gate. You've got to be okay, but and then okay, so you've got like a 20-minute window where you can have
Mhm,
your lunch because you've got to be over to here at this time and you've got to be ready and more than likely you're fighting, so you've got to have time to go run your fight, practice that and be over here for that and be here for that. Yeah, no, quite frankly, being a peasant is much easier because I don't have responsibility then. I just got to roll around on the ground and be dirty
mhm,
and that's my only responsibility. So,
yeah.
yeah, no.
I loved it because I love the perspective. Uh,
Mhm.
it's something I would totally do again, but, it's definitely different, but to just going out there and doing reenactment carefree, all willy-nilly. But, I grasp that also in the sense of doing the combat show that we had here on the channel prior to. I
Mhm.
was in the first season we did, I think it was 2016.
Mhm.
I very specifically wanted 10 characters. It was, and I wanted to be sort of that outside just director like I
Mhm.
did for this year, but obviously, maybe I just didn't ask enough people. But I put myself in there just to be filler, and because I wanted that dream fight with Tara, uh, which maybe hopefully in the future have a just might fetch match with Tara, or yourself. Pretty much, I get dream matches, but I
Oh,
just
yeah.
go with whatever you guys go with. But the second time around, I was very specific, even though I opened it up to like 12 people, which was a
Mhm.
total mistake. But it was just like, I just want to feature everyone and make sure that they get what they want in. And that's really the point of it, is just make sure, at least in terms of reenactment, just make sure everyone gets what they want out of it
Yeah.
if you can, and then just go from there, I guess.
Absolutely. No, it's like yeah, everybody I mean, everybody's doing this for a reason, and hopefully,
Yeah.
I mean, when they do it, they're able to get what they want out of it and enjoy it and wanna come back the next year, and then 20 years down the road, still wanna come back, and,
Yep. Then they're fighting with a cane.
when I missed 2012, and I still every time I hear the story about the Irish scenario,
Oh
and
goodness.
this and that, and I wasn't part of it, so I don't have that story, and it was like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
I feel sad, and then it'll move on to another year, and I think that's one of the funniest things about getting to do this show over many years and decades and stuff like that, is you start to equate things in your life, major life events, and or even minor life events to fair years.
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, I got that car during King Arthur year," or, yeah, "Oh, no, I broke my broke my hand during, Joan of Arc," or everything ends up tying back to a year that you did fair. I
Hmm.
mean, "Oh, oh, that's the year that was the year I got this job." No, that was the year that happened when yeah, when we did Magyars or
Yeah.
something like that. It all comes back to fair because it becomes a big part of a lot of people's lives, and it's which is good. I mean, it's good to have
Indeed, and
things.
that's why we do it. That's why
Yeah.
it's more than the weird, rotting normality of life.
Yeah.
But indeed, on that note, of course, we will go ahead and close that out. We could drag on for hours, specifically in this topic, but
Mhm.
maybe another time and other specific topics to discuss with you. But that'll be that for this episode of the Talk Past podcast. I, of course, am NC. And before I let you close yourself out, of course, uh, to let everyone know, you are much more than just even just assistant, or even just when you weren't in that regard, just doing fight cast or improv. But I mean, you put the chessboard together, as in like physically. Uh, a lot of people doing our show, but no one listening knows that you're the one that paints the board. You're the one that sets it up. Everything that we kind of live and die by, you've put to life, and you're the one that kind of gets everything kind of going, kind of like a backbone of our group.
Mhm.
Honestly, at this point, and maybe even beforehand without realizing it. There's always that one person that just kind of is the backbone of what we do or what you do, whether it's SCA or West Coast Pirates, so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So I deeply appreciate what you've done
Mm,
for all of us.
mhm. Thank you.
But hey, you can close yourself out.
Well, I mean, it's been great talking to you, Nancy.
Mhm.
I mean, like you said, I could go on for hours, and sometimes I do, and it's just better to mute my mic at some point. Um,
Although before we do all you do have your Twitch stream or your
yes,
gaming stream.
I do have a Twitch stream. It is xoddduckout.com, kind of like odd man out, but odd duck out. I
Mhm.
like ducks, but X odd duck out X. Um, the goal is to start streaming again. It's been a little bit 2022 has been a weird year so
Yep.
far for me, but I want to get back into it. Video games, and who knows what I might end up doing at some point. I mean, reading stereo instructions. I don't know.
Hey,
I'm
doing
it's
doing
I mean,
like
maybe
we
I'll just
did.
sit there for like an hour, go
Yep.
and wave my hands around like I don't know, like Michael J. Fox. I don't know.
Or, we didn't even go into this, but obviously you directed our live stream chess match.
Yeah, yep. We couldn't get away from it. We had to do one during the pandemic, and so
Mhm.
yeah, 2020 we had decided to paint a board in my backyard, and we put on put on
Oh,
a
yeah,
chess
yeah.
match in the backyard. So that was ah, uh,
Yeah, not to really digress, as we end the show, but, that was my last fight up to that point, but I wouldn't we were dressed literally in the same outfit. But, we rehearsed at, Robinson Preserve in the beach with the shells and the dead horseshoe crabs all around us.
mhm.
And then that kinda got to us. We literally rehearsed that fight in my apartment at the time, my tiny little 400 square foot apartment. So that was interesting, but hopefully that went out well. But anywho,
Yeah.
yes, Duck Out, our director of the Sarasota Medieval Fair, um, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Indeed. Rabble dabble.